I'm telling you, people, if it wasn't for bad luck, I'd have no luck. There's the internet here in the beautiful enclave that I live in. Unfortunately, it was out and it just came on. We had put up the notice of when we were going live, and it just came back on with just enough time. But it kind of got me a little stressed out and behind the eight ball, so to speak. Shelly Kelly, good to see you. Listen to this. YouTube rejected your comment. This usually means they think it's spam. Try changing it a bit. I just said, hang in there, Shelly. And YouTube, for whatever reason, thought I was spamming my own channel. Aloha, Cookie. Good to see you. Hey, Kirsten, I'm sorry. Hello from Scotland. Everybody glad to catch another live, worth staying up late for. I'll tell you what, this one is going to get your attention. It really is. And you know what's cool? What's cool is anything that I bring in this time has no sound. So I don't have to worry about sound. We got some show and tell, but there's no sound involved. Cassandra, it is Tommy time. Allegedly. I don't know if you guys caught me over on the Sean Atwood program, but I popped over there today, and he actually sang an allegedly today. I got a kick out of that, man. I got a really big kick out of that. But yeah, he tossed out an allegedly for us. YouTube is strange, Kestrel. Make no mistake, YouTube is strange. Kirsten, we are glad you're here, and I hope you come back. All right, people, listen to this. We're going at an odd time of the day, right? We're going at an odd time of the day. This is not usually when we go. It's kind of one of those in-between times. Heather in the library, good to see you. So this is going to be, I'm hoping, honestly, I think that we'll get caught up on the views, but this may keep to a small audience, which would make this a hell of a lot of fun. Lumen, good to see you. Here, you ready for a little teaser? And then we'll go back and dig this again, but check this out. We'll have a little fun here first. Are you ready? Are you ready? Get a good look at those names real quickly, people. Hold on one second. I got to do this before I do that. Sorry. I got to get rid of that comment. There we go. There we go. All right. Get a look at all of those names, peeps. Can you see those? We got Channing Tatum, you see that? Heidi Klum's on there. Big names, no. Emma Roberts is on there. These are big names. Ashton Kutcher, you saw him on the thumbnail. Everybody you're looking at was a model for Abercrombie and Fitch. Now, there's nothing wrong with being a model for Abercrombie and Fitch. However, a bunch of these people then end up not being models anymore, but they get dropped into other areas of entertainment. And it's making some people speculate. Do you think maybe this thing is like, maybe there's so many moving parts to this that we know he's doing, for all intents and purposes, very similar things to what Diddy was doing, except he was doing it all with young men, very young men. Sloppy Martin, good to see you. They were throwing parties where basically, hello, Anna, these guys were getting young boys. I mean, they were, most of them, barely over 18. And they were promised that they had a shot at stardom, careers, all kinds of stuff like that, if they were willing to, quid pro quo kind of stuff. You want to be a star, and I kind of want you to do this to me, kind of a thing. Short note, what's happening? Good to see you. Meredith Lynn. How are you, Meredith? Good to see you. Teresa, good to have you. What's up, Karen? So, this gets weird. You probably saw on the thumbnail, I put, you can't make this stuff up, right? You can't make this stuff up. You do know that the Abercrombie & Fitch was sold in the 80s for a ridiculously small amount of money, hindsight being 2020. Like $45 million or something. Not a whole hell of a lot of money. But it was purchased by a guy named Les Wexner. A lot of you probably know that name. Diane, how are you? You may know that name from such great classics as, no, seriously though, this is the guy that owns Victoria's Secret, right? And his other claim to fame, swear to God, is that his financial, the lone financial advisor, or the person that ran all of his finances, all of them, was a gentleman by the name of Jeffrey. Right? Last name starts with an E. This guy had you-know-who, the guy that unalived himself, allegedly, but none of us believe he did, right? You know who I'm talking about, right? You know who I'm talking about. It's 5 minutes in, and if I say his name, I'm liable to get this thing buried. But you know who I'm talking about, right? Jeffrey with the island down in the Bahamas. That Jeffrey worked for Wexner, and Wexner hooked him up. When I say hooked him up, he hooked him up to the degree that you go, wait a second, this doesn't make any effing sense at all. I'm sorry, this doesn't make any sense. You want an example? Would you like a house? Do you need a place to live? Do you need 4 or 5 of them? You can have them. By the way, power of attorney across the board. You want to buy something, you want to sell something, you want to do anything in my name. You go ahead and do it, right? That's a big deal. Now, all of these actors and actresses that were, I'm not suggesting that any of these people had to do the things that, but it's pretty damn odd because most of us, I think, there are people you probably forgot that ever did anything with these people. So, you know who that is, right? That over there with the guitar ought to help be a giveaway on that. That right there, of course, is Taylor Swift. Tay-tay, oh, tay-tay. Did everybody get that reference? Somebody get that reference. This here would be Shannon Tatum. This here, that's Jennifer Lawrence. Not sure if you recognize that. This one, honestly, I have no idea. But Jennifer Lawrence was a model for them really, really young. You know who else was? Lindsay Lohan. And when you look up the times of these people who were actresses with them, right? All of them seem to have their break right after modeling for Abercrombie and Fitch. Now, one thing does not mean the other. You follow me? One thing doesn't mean the other. There's no proof that, let's say Jennifer Lawrence did get a job right after leaving there, or get her big break, or let's say Ashton Kutcher bailed on the modeling thing at about the exact same time that he went over and started doing that 70s show. As you start chasing these down, this was a stepping stone for every single person you see up there. Really, I mean, I'm not accusing anybody of anything. You understand? I'm not suggesting that they were trading anything. I'm not suggesting this was a casting couch. However, I will say this. Virginia Guthrie, I believe is how you say her last name. This is the woman that successfully sued not only Jeffrey, but also Ghislaine, right? She, in her the most recent unsealed document concerning the lawsuit that she had, named Les and names him in bad ways. You guys can go and Google that. I'm not even going to throw an allegedly on it, but it is out there and you can go read it. And you know what? I will. Allegedly, this guy had the pick of who he wanted, and he was using that kind of stuff, right? And allegedly, he made trips to that island and took advantage of the same thing that Prince Andrew did. That is what is alleged, right? And it's in a document that was just recently released. But these are absolutely huge names. I mean, look at every one of them. Olivia Wilde, right? We all know every one of these names. Nobody on here that you're like, nah, that's a no, right? These are huge names. And so apparently this Taylor Swift, right before her breakout album, I'm not saying anything. I swear to you I'm not, right? And I'm not even trying I'm not trying to give any of you reason to think. You hear me? I'm not. But what I would like you to do is a little critical thinking, because this stinks, right? What are the odds that a guy who was working for a company owned by a guy who was allowing Jeffrey Epstein to run his entire empire, right? This guy let Epstein run his entire empire. And part of that, the Abercrombie and Fitch gentleman who is working, this is part of Wexner's stable. In fact, old Jeffrey Epstein used to like to tell young women that he was a talent scout for Victoria's Secret. Now, did he do that with permission? Hey, Paula Pendley, I don't know if he did it with permission or not. Lord B823. Yeah, you're right. You're right. It's pretty disgusting, but it's also incestuous as hell, right? People, Do you think there is any chance that this is coincidental? Right? I'm not saying the timing of the bust. I'm not saying this has got anything to do with Diddy snitching. Right? A lot of people are running with that. I don't believe there's any chance to that. Honestly, I don't. But the fact that this person is being accused of and just charged with a crime that's about that close to the crime that Diddy was doing, right? Except this guy was running what amounts to a prostitution ring, right? Where very rich people could come and enjoy the company of the caliber of young men they saw on the pages of Abercrombie and Fitch. This is what is alleged, right? She's pretty sick. And this took place all over the world. These weren't just parties in the good old US of A or in islands. This was everywhere, including Morocco. And I'll tell you something. My favorite movie is Casablanca. Anytime anybody talks about Morocco, I think of Rick's Cafe Americain. My favorite movie ever. Shards of Words, good to see you. AJ's channel, what's happening? Good to see you. Abercrombie was huge when I was in middle school. Way to make me feel old. My mom was always like, what the F? These are male workers going around topless for, right? I showed you the picture of Ashton, right? I mean, here's the thing, too. When I was going through and grabbing some images, right, so that I could show you guys some of this stuff, right? I really couldn't show you half of them. Right, there were plenty of photos where, no joke whatsoever, the people in them don't have clothing on. Now, they have positioned all of these kids that look almost prepubescent in such a way that you cannot see anything, but you know that they're all naked. He pushed the envelope, right, in every way, shape, and form. And say what you will, right? This lowlife. And make no mistake, right? This cat's a lowlife of biblical proportion. But he took him from nothing to massive. He did. The way he did it is disturbing as hell. It's been accused of being racist. It's been accused of all kinds of stuff. It's hateful. If you read some of the ad campaigns, if you read the T-shirts, this was pretty disgusting stuff. But he flew around the world on a G6, right? That is a very, very expensive aircraft. Kind of like Diddy had a very, very expensive aircraft. Kind of like Epstein. In fact, allegedly, Diddy's aircraft was Epstein's aircraft. And all of these people are in bed together, right? What are the odds that these people all aren't swapping trade secrets? Because they all seem to be doing the same thing. In the indictment against this CEO Michael Jeffries, they kept talking about muscle relaxers that were being given out to the fellas. And I don't want to get graphic and bum people out, but there is a reason muscle relaxers would be a very popular chemical with people that were going to be asked to do the things that these guys might be asked to do, right? It relaxes muscles. Feel me? However, in that indictment, they said the muscle relaxants are referred to as poppers. I assure you, that is that's a paralegal or a lawyer that took a statement not quite right, because I promise you they're not calling muscle relaxers poppers. What they were saying was that they always had poppers around as well. Poppers have always been wildly popular in the gay community. Not exactly sure why, but wildly popular. And these things come in huge boxes, and they're like when you play football, if somebody passes out, they take these little things that are like smelling salts. Inside of this cardboard protector is a piece of metal that has some rugged chemicals in it. And when you crack those chemicals, right, you probably saw them do it in the movie Studio 54, if you watched that movie. Because again, the owners of Studio 54, those were gay men, and this was in the 70s when poppers were really popular. You're inhaling something. If you've ever seen a little bottle called Rush, right? You went to the head shop when you were a kid, and you bought something called Rush and you sniff that stuff, it's the same principle. Exactly. In fact, it's the same chemical, but they do it in a different way, where when you break that thing, it's overwhelming, right? And very often, allegedly, people try to do this at the moment of climax. It's supposed to make things a whole hell of a lot nicer. I always thought that was nice enough and didn't need a whole lot of help. Antonio, good to see you. Glad that you're here, man. Patricia, glad you're here. Hey, tip 420, man. You were thinking of Rush the other day? Did it give you a wicked headache? Hey, Judy Jetson. Sorry. Just his boy Elroy. I was a huge Jetson fan. Gross, absolutely gross. And I'll tell you something else. You start reading these lawsuits, so much of it is so gross. I've been asked yesterday, and then I was asked again today, how do you keep this stuff from taking you down dark holes that are just disgusting? And the answer is you go down dark holes that are disgusting. Right? You're a lot better if you can read it than watch it. But I mean, personally, I'm a lot better if I can read it than watch it. And when I leave YouTube, I leave YouTube. I really do. I leave the stuff here. But I was reading yesterday, and I don't want to come here and just be salacious, right? But again, you get the battle cries of who cares? One of them, the most recent lawsuit, alleges that Diddy and a series of his male friends took turns on this person that Diddy had used chemicals, right? DRD chemicals to knock this guy out. But the guy was not completely, often these drugs will put you into a semi-conscious or a semi-comatose kind of state where you're kind of aware of what's going on, but you're not. And he said he knew that people were changing because he could tell that the size of the people who were violating him were changing. It's an absolutely horrific thing to read. The male who was assaulted in the stock room at Macy's flagship store. That is such a disturbing story to read, right? If what is alleged in that is factual, that's one of the most disturbing things I've ever read in my life. And you find yourself wanting to say, they got to have a death penalty, right? I mean, if there's ever been somebody that should have gotten bumped, I'm sorry. If what they're saying is true. Now, I was doing research the other day. You know, RICO charges, RICO cases, and the feds in general used to lose. They used to. The feds used to lose all the time, if you want to know the truth. Very often, they couldn't bring a case against the original gangsters, the Italians. They couldn't bring a case against these guys that they could get to convict. And then I think they changed the rules, honestly, right? Rudy Giuliani became the prosecutor in the Southern District of New York. And RICO had been around. They kind of make it sound like he invented it. RICO, I think if someone wants to correct me on this, you can do so, but I think it was right in the early 70s. Hey, Linda, good to see you. So he was just the first one to use it effectively, right? He was the first one to really use RICO effectively. And, he went in there and he got John Gotti. But people were shocked because Gotti beat everything, right? He was the Teflon Don. Hey, Katie Much. Ooh, Rhinoceros, what's happening? Hey, Judith. Yeah, Judith. He was forcing the gentleman to perform a sex act on people. And he allegedly hit him with a gun. And I'll tell you something, people. The term pistol whip gets thrown around in films. You hear it all the time. Franklin, how are you? Hey, Adam Wood. People say all the time stuff like, pistol whip that dude. If you ever see somebody get hit with a gun, it's going to absolutely blow your mind. These things weigh massive amounts of weight, even small ones. It's a big chunk of steel. If you've got a teeny little deuce or a 25, they're solid steel. But if you're carrying like a large frame revolver or something like the cops carry, I mean, you'd kill somebody, you hit him in the head with that. But allegedly, before anything happened, this guy took out his pew and whacked this dude in the head with it. it would absolutely disorient you. If it didn't, knock you out, split you open, and kill you. For real, it's a heavy piece of steel to be swinging at, folks. Yeah, Antonio, that's my. It is insane how all of these sick people are connected. Yeah, I mean, all of it, right? Every bit of it. As this is going on, right? As this gentleman is running Abercrombie and Fitch and using it as his own personal candy shop, right? And his preferences and those of two friends of his ran toward very, very young men. And that's what the catalogs looked like. You want to hear some bizarre stuff about this cat? Because he was really different on his jet since we bring up the plane. The jet setting, this guy had some very odd, peculiar things that he wanted done every time people were on the jet. In other words, you remember how stewardesses or anybody that worked on planes, they used to wear these horrific looking outfits that made them look more like they were getting ready to strip than getting ready to get on an airplane, right? It was awful. And we've gotten away from a lot of that stuff. He had men exclusively who were the employees on his aircraft. The idea that flight attendants have to have a certain attractive look seems a bit as outdated as go-go boots, but Jeffries, who turned to Abercrombie into a hot teen brand, sexting up the image of the all-American jock, right? 55-year-old private jet pilot Michael Stevens Buston, who filed a lawsuit in 2010, right? This is his pilot that filed a lawsuit saying, you're not going to believe the crap. But jeans were to be worn at the hip, right? At the hip. Polo shirts and flip-flops had to be worn. Sweatshirts could be worn, but only if the staff all coordinated their wardrobes in advance. A winter coat was required if the temperature fell below 50 degrees, but the collar had to be turned up and the bottom button had to be left unbuttoned. Hats were mandated when the temperature dropped below 40 degrees, with the brims folded 2 inches. Regardless of the weather, flip-flops had to be worn while flying and greeting passengers. Also mandatory for male attendants, boxer briefs and Abercrombie cologne spritzed all over their uniforms. Does this sound like another weirdo with a crap load of cash who thinks he's king? Right? Doesn't it? Because allegedly, while Sean Combs was off doing his thing, right? Guess who would have been also doing his thing? The man that unalived himself in the Manhattan Detention Center for Men, which is why it's no longer open, right? We all know that. They had to shut that baby down, and quickly. Why? Because one camera was out. And God forbid you let somebody in there and they could see all of the cameras. Anybody with a half a brain is going to go, there's a lot of other cameras here. So the camera on his cell wasn't working. How about all the other ones? He had to enter the building and he had to exit the building. And if he's an employee, he had to come up to, right, that floor. If no one did, right, it would tell you a specific thing. They're not, what they did was they got those 2 employees and got them out of there as quick as possible. They've already done community service and they're already done with their sentence that they pled guilty to, dereliction of duty or some such crap. I can't remember what they pled guilty to, but it was weak. Oh, it may have been falsifying because those people are supposed to get up and they're supposed to walk the segregated housing unit. And they're supposed to do it on the top and the bottom of the hour. So every 30 minutes, you're blowing a donut. You feel me? Hold on 1 second, people. Sorry, you just got to make sure it's not breaking news or something like that. Yes, our uniforms have changed to pants and dress shirts, belts, specific dress shoes for flight attendants. Breeze Airlines. That's a hell of a name for an airline. I've never been on Breeze Airlines. I've been on a lot of airlines, but I don't think I've ever been on Breeze. I think I would have remembered that. Right? It's got a kind of a cool name, right? It's a breeze. The dulcet tones. Mary Alice Massa. Some of these kids are related to older stars. Emma Roberts, is she not the niece of Julia Roberts? My understanding is that she is the niece of Julia Roberts. This is the one that was also in We Are the Millers, correct? Somebody help me on this. If I'm wrong, don't let me be wrong. Brenda's got a great idea. She says, let's keep Tommy afloat. Whack that like button. Great idea. You know what? I have said this so many times, and I'm going to stick with this. I really am. I got a really sharp audience, and so much of what you hear me take to other channels, and I give credit all the time to the crew, but a lot of the stuff that I get from you guys. I don't know why that one has not occurred to me. I don't know why that didn't occur to me. That was probably an opportunity too, right? That they could probably put that into something like a cologne or a perfume. The CEO came from JetBlue, and he created Breeze. Okay, well, I have been on JetBlue. I think I would like to believe, right, that some people are just sick. But unfortunately, it seems like a crap load of people are sick. And it seems like they've all got a plan. Right? Epstein would have been doing his thing. At the same time, Diddy would have been doing his thing. And at the same time as this guy from Abercrombie and Fitch, Michaels, would have been doing his thing. Think about that. All of these little hustles and cons would have been going on. How did they not run into each other? How are they not connected? How is this not all part of the same damn machine? Right? They all have the same idea. They all just have the same idea to say, I got a great idea. Let's get people in here, right? We'll get some underage boys and girls, and we'll catch these people in compromising positions. We'll make videos. Every time you let something like this happen, you know what happens? Huh? The handler, the people who are trying to handle the lunatic, right? You get a Whitey Bulger. You get someone who you can't handle. And whoever is the handlers for these people, here are three that got wildly out of control. The hubris, right? If you believe the majority of what is coming out on the Sean Combs case, he did this with impunity. He did this like it was legal. He did this like there was no chance on God's green earth he was going to get caught for any reason ever, right? Ever. Catalina, how are you? There are some crossover of names that were Abercrombie and Fitch models that are now in the music industry also. It's alarming. Well, it definitely, there's a lot of people, right? A lot of people who worked for Abercrombie and then ended up famous. We can go down the list, right? Jennifer Lawrence is up there. January Jones. You know what? I'm really struggling to see these things. I'd have to blow it up. But these, do I see Sierra Miller? Is that a Miller? Scott Eastwood, Emma Roberts, Nikki Reed. These are names. Most of these names are very well known. Heidi Klum, Ashton Kutcher, Lindsay Lohan, Lilo. If you start chasing these people down, you know what you find? I'm telling you, chase them down. What you will find is Lilo took this right before she got the deal with the Freaky Friday deal. I don't remember what they called it in the second one, but where she and Ma trade places. Remember Jamie Lee Curtis? It was everybody seems to decide to be a model at Abercrombie right before a big breakout role. And it starts to make you wonder if it isn't connected. And if these people aren't going, yeah, this really isn't my brand. You know what I mean? I mean, maybe the Tatum guy, but the rest of these people, or Ashton Kutcher, you know, this was a sick group of people with more money than brains who used that cash to do whatever they want and to victimize whoever they want. Everybody recognize that dude in the front? Right? If you just get in here, he was on the thumbnail. That's Ashton Kutcher. Shocker. Guess when Ashton Kutcher was a model at Abercrombie? Right before getting the role on that 70s show. Now, you could argue that the reason that they're, it's not that they got any kind of leg up. It's that you're going to stop modeling if you end up an actor or an actress, right? You're not going to spend your time going back to modeling. Maybe. Sounds good, right? Sounds good. All right, you pop culture geniuses, help me out with the one on the far right, right? We know who the other three are, right? We know Taylor Swift. We know Jennifer Lawrence and Mrs. Tatum, right? I don't know who that is. Can anybody help me out? Because yeah, I'm lost. I don't know who that is. But I'm not particularly good at this pop culture stuff. And especially if if it came out while I was partying, and a lot of this stuff did. January Jones dates Ashton for a bit. He told her she wasn't a good fit for acting. She went on to play Betty Draper on Mad Men. Yep. So many of these people. Penn Bagley, is that what you said? On the far right? Well, thank you, Lumen. See, I knew you guys are smarter than me. Marky Mark was Calvin Klein, right? Now, by the way, if anyone thinks Calvin Klein was doing a whole lot better, you can raise your hand. I honestly couldn't answer that question. Maybe Calvin Klein's great. I do remember a crap load of controversy around that brand, right? CK, and the ad campaigns that they were coming out with in the 90s. This was a really big deal because it looked like it was really disgusting is what it looked like. You spelled his name wrong? Someone spelled his name? I'm going to let that slide. I was told there'd be no spell check. Yeah. Yeah, you know what? Ah, Susie Q. There's the warning, right? If you're into this, guess what? This is your year. Where's Cat Williams? Where's Cat Williams? Yes, that was Jennifer Lawrence in the middle. Absolutely. Mid-left. That was her. Isn't that disturbing? You know what I mean? I struggled to see the ages, man. I struggled to see the ages. Yeah, Calvin Klein, Kate Moss, and Marky Mark. The Anna Nicole Smith ad was definitely an issue, right? But a lot of the stuff, especially with CK1, like you looked at these people and you went, there's no way these people are 18. There's no way these people are 18. And they were putting people that were under the age in very sort of provocative poses. Susie Q says, the Abercrombie shopping bags had images of men with no shirts on, only showing their skin for clothing store. I never went in there. I'll tell you something else. There was an awful lot of just complete nakedness, right? I didn't want to bring them in. I'm tired of getting videos dinged. But a bunch of the videos when I was going through the images, and a bunch of them from famous people, where in one interview, one of the models said, yeah, we got there. We were there like 5 minutes, and they were like, yeah, get the clothes off. It's an odd thing, right? And she even said later on a talk show, she goes, yeah, I really couldn't figure out what the hell we were selling. Well, they weren't selling clothing. They weren't, right? This was a style or an image or a Sean Combs. There's a clip of him out there talking about how we're going to tell you what's cool. We're going to tell your kids what's cool. We decide, right, what you buy. We decide what you listen to. We decide what movies you see. And man, I'm listening to the dude going, I'm not that comfortable with it, right? Especially when you look back on it now and you go, good Lord. And was that H&M? Wow. A long time ago. Anne from Massachusetts says, Brooke Shields, didn't she do CK? She said, nothing comes between me and my Calvins, right? That was the ad, I think. Yeah. And everybody's bringing it up. Everyone's bringing up Brooke Shields. I believe the ad said, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but nothing comes between me and my... Some people believe Joan Rivers is still alive. Boy, Linda, how old would Joan Rivers be if she was still alive? For the love of God, she would have to be really getting up there in age. Yeah, see, that's how I remember it too. Oh, and you know something? He did a movie, right? Somebody help me with the movie. Something Blue, right? It was a movie where there were only two people in it. These were two kids that were stranded on an island. And if you tried to make that movie today, they would call it that word I can't say on here. But you had two underage people who were nude through most of the film. Really, Brooke Shields should have been protected. She was sexualized as a kid. Blue Lagoon. There you go. That's what it was called. Blue Lagoon. Awful stuff, man. I would assume, and maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think that they're not showing that anywhere, right? I don't think there's a service out there happy to have old Blue Lagoon. I don't think that aged very well. I think when we look back on it through the lens of 2024, that didn't work out so well, man. No question. We touched on this in the beginning, right? Lex Wessner, all of his finances were run by Jeffrey Epstein, plain and simple. Then he hires this freak to go run Abercrombie and Fitch. And it looks like that was, all guys, right? Epstein certainly was, I think, geared toward young ladies. It starts almost looking like they had a plan. And I don't know that there's any way to, I'm giving you my opinion here, people, but what are the friggin' odds? Honestly, what are the odds that these three people would be able to be tied together, not by the 6 degrees of separation, right? We could do it by like 2 degrees of separation. This doesn't smell right, right? This doesn't pass the smell test at all. It doesn't pass the smell test. This to me seems like we'd have to be ignoramuses to not realize that all of this is connected. I'm sorry. And if you're just getting here, right? If you're just getting here, Christopher Atkins, well done. Well done. Cynthia says, I'm a boomer. I remember. I think a lot of us probably remember it. It was, look, I had a crush on her when I was a kid. I think every boy had a crush on her when we were kids. Judy, you are so happy. Literally, you're happy you didn't. You really are. They were cousins in Blue Lagoon, Adam says. Yee. That's all right. We may as well make it a little worse, right? Yee. Yeah, there you go. That pretty much sums that up, doesn't it? That pretty much sums that up, doesn't it? Back then, there was a will and a way. Well, that's because back Hey, Lucinda, what's happening? Love Lucinda. I was not allowed to watch the movie either. But back then, where there was a will, there was a way, right? Raise your hand if you ever said to an adult in the lobby, hey, man, will you pretend to be my older brother? Right, so that you could get into an R movie. Heather, how are you? Hey, fancy face. So, this, once again, every person on that. Why do I continually do that? I am not the brightest bulb. You know what I'm saying? Let's try that one more time. Everybody on this list modeled for Abercrombie and Fitch. All of them, by the way, would have been modeling during the time that this sicko, Michael Jeffries, would have been at the helm. Guy ran the company for a long, long time. I think it was 24 years or so. It was a long time. And I'll tell you something else. If you look at dude's career, he seemed like an odd choice, right? He had done 2 or 3 deals in a row that hadn't worked. Like if you go and just read the Wikipedia on him, like you don't have to do a bunch of research. They describe his business life, and there's no success. Like he's not doing well. Things aren't going great. Opens his own business, tries to expand too quick, it fails. Like nothing's going good. And then all of a sudden they go, well, you're not doing great. Maybe we'll hire you to run our Abercrombie and Fitch, right? And you're not really an investment broker or anything like that, right? You're not that kind of person. But I'll hire you to handle all of my finances. Give you power of attorney, give you my mansion in New York, right? Complete with a picture of our former president wearing a blue dress, hanging right inside his little, well, when you have that many rooms, I don't know what you call it. Normal people would have called it a living room, but this guy had enough rooms to gag a maggot, right? To gag a maggot. The overwhelming vibe, right, of Abercrombie and Fitch throughout all of the 90s and into the 2000s, right, were a lot of both young men and young women wildly in states of undress, right? Awful lot of guys in boxers hugging each other like they're best of friends. And I got news for you, man. I played football. I skied a lot, spent a lot of time around dudes. I've also been in prison. We don't do stuff like this, man. For real, at least not any of the places I'm going to, right? I'm not seeing all this bro love, Ashton, right? But boy, oh boy, there was a lot of it in the catalog. It looked like you were trying to arouse older gay men. Sorry, that's what it looked like, right? And it was on sides of buildings. It was everywhere. You remember how bad it was in the 90s? It was everywhere. Taylor Swift. And look at Jennifer Lawrence. I'm not sure how young she is, right, in that shot. But the pose, grabbing the hair, everything was kind of designed. Oh, and Mr. Tatum, that is as high as you're going to see a pair of shorts, boxers, anything that you're wearing to cover the lower region of your body. That right there is like, it's like pulling the belt up as high as you can in that catalog. For real. They spent a lot of time seeing how low they could drop pants without you getting a look at the guy's manhood. If you're just getting here, this is a big group of former models for Abercrombie and Fitch. These people were models during the time that Michael Jeffries was there. And all of them went on to do really great things, usually right after their little stint at Abercrombie and Fitch. If they're promising people, right, and this is what the government alleges, right, in the Abercrombie and Fitch case, the government alleges that they lied to all of these young models and promised them the world. You're going to be famous. You'll end up in in movies or in whatever. And they would have these people basically, they wanted the casting couch experience. Like that's what these guys were paying for, was to know that these guys were doing what they were doing because they wanted to be models, which adds a layer of disgustingness to this, right? That if it doesn't make you throw up in your mouth a little bit, there's probably something wrong. But let's just, can I throw out a hypothetical, people? This is just a Tommy Scoble opinion. And it's not even an opinion. It's a what if, right? What if every once in a while somebody comes through and they go, you know what? We probably can make this person a star, right? We probably can make this person a star. I'm not saying that doesn't necessarily mean these people didn't have to put up with a lot of crap, but they did get passed up the line, didn't they? I mean, not necessarily in terms of abuse or anything else, but they all made it. Right? Everybody here made it out of Abercrombie and Fitch. By the way, if you had to hazard a guess, right? Because this is one of those things that I kind of find interesting. But if you had to hazard a guess, right? What do you think a model at Abercrombie and Fitch makes a year? Right? I mean, this is big time modeling, right? This isn't this isn't the Sunday section of the paper where you're advertising boots or something. This is big time. This is about this is a big deal. Not much, says Susie Q. Well, in the research that I was able to do, they said between 79,000, right, on the low end, but it tops below 120, right? Fancy face guest 20 grand, between 70 and a little over about 117, just under 120. So from 79 to about 117. That, I was blown away at that, right? I didn't think these people were going to be making millions of dollars a year, but I figured they were probably making 250, right? I figured they were probably making $250,000 a year. Ashton absolutely was a big time model. Right up until the point where he took the gig at that 70s show with his best friend, right? Another puzzle piece, Daniel Masterson. Fancy face, you were off. You know what though? It's probably better to guess your way, not mine. It is and this goes in every direction, right? This is one of those things where when you hear that this person gets busted, and you get emails from people who say, hey, do you think this Abercrombie and Fitch thing could have anything to do with what's going on? And you say, no. I mean, it's a parallel track. These guys are doing the same kind of thing. They're being accused by the government of almost the exact same thing, right? They have the T charge, but the other charge is running a prostitution ring, a male prostitution ring, high dollar, which they spent millions of dollars to put a infrastructure in place so that they can pull this off, right? So that they can make all of this happen. This was something they were really, really into. I worked in the fashion industry. Every model is underage. That's a fact. It's so disturbing. It really is. Hey, Crash Zoe, it's so disturbing to even think that, right? Because you just see, did you see the runway crap where the people, and I'm sorry, did you happen to see the fashion show where all of the fashion, all of the outfits were made of black electrical tape? I'm not sure if you saw this. And they were put on kind of at the time. And I don't know. I have a problem with it. Bobby Paul, 820. There is a gay mafia at the top, and more, I believe the world is run by, sickos and sick satanic ritual stuff. I'm not going to argue with you, Bobby. I'm not. This just seems to keep coming again and again and again. This is a question that everyone is asking, right? Where are the parents? Are their kids so easily keeping them in the dark? Or do they get caught up in this too, right? And I think it's worse in Hollywood, or it's worse in with record labels. Modeling, it's bad, but you go into Diddy's office and he's telling you that, we're going to make you the most famous person in the world. We're going to make you the amount of money you're going to make doing this. I mean, you see the videos, right? And everything they did, all the songs, all the videos were designed, in my humble opinion, to try to make everybody want to be the person who's the rock star. And I don't mean, everybody always wanted to be Mick Jagger, right? Or everybody always wanted to be, pick your favorite artist or whatever, because you thought being a rock star would probably be cool. This is different because they're not just stars, are they? Right? They're gangsters. They're celebrating the life I used to live, right? It shouldn't be called gangster rock. It should be called criminal rock or criminal rap. It's just they celebrate crime, right? They celebrate dealing drugs. They celebrate rolling people. They celebrate hitting a lick. Is it a wonder, right, that the crime rates are up? Yeah, it's pretty sick stuff. The sexualization of underage kids was pretty in your face in the late 70s, throughout the 80s. I can't answer to that because I'm so damn young. I was alive in the 70s, right? But I don't remember bell bottoms or much of this. I mean, I started elementary school in the 70s, but most of what I remember started to come, the memories that are really, really solid in my life usually go from the very beginning of the 80s on. James Sharp says the industry was created for one reason: private prison industry. I'm not smart enough to speak to that. I'm really not. And I understand what you're saying, and I've heard the arguments too. You bring in the De Leon and you bring in the Ciroc. Ciroc was flavored vodka, right? If you got people that don't drink much, flavored vodka it really does seem like it was really well thought out. However, because I was a federal inmate, out of the 127 or whatever federal prisons, we have two. We got two privately run prisons, and they're not even prisons. One is a deportation yard, right, where we keep people before we ship them out of the country. So it's not really a prison proper. That's one of them, and the other is a transfer center in Pahrump, Nevada, and that is a private prison run by a company called CCA. And I've gone through that prison, I think 3 times, because it's a transfer center. You got to do it when you get on a plane. I think I went through there 3 times, if I'm not mistaken. And every time it was called CCA. And every time the CCA meant something different. They changed the names of those things every couple of years, probably because of lawsuits or whatever. But so I wasn't caught up in the private prison stuff. I didn't really see it. I know there are a lot of states where private prisons are a really big deal. In the feds, they are not. They passed laws to run the privatization of federal prisons. They did away with it. But what they do have is they have these factories that they work. I mean, I worked at Unicor. So I was a factory worker. Every day I went in and I worked at a factory. You work 40 hours a week, or about 36 or 37 hours a week. And then if you want, you can pick up some overtime. They pay you absolutely nothing. And anybody that's trying to build a product the same as you can't compete, right? They can't compete. The line, we were making military uniforms, and the stuff that I was making, the line that I was on was dress stuff for the Air Force, right? That was what our line was. And I think that altogether there was like 13 people on the line, right? All together, including me. Those 13 people, right, weren't making $2 an hour combined. How are you going to compete with that? And who decides who gets those gigs? In other words, I'd kind of like to pay people 10 cents an hour, right? Or 3 cents an hour, $42 a month. How can I do that? How do I get involved in that? Or do you just have to know somebody? But I do wholeheartedly believe that there is this engine that is fueled by keeping inmates in, one way or the other, right? Whether it's private, whether it's not, they are definitely making money off of inmates, and that's it's a bummer. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you, Indigo's Insights. Thank you. And thank you for the support and the kind words. Yeah, drugs, battering women, murder, it's set. A lot of full prisons. Yeah, a lot of them are busting at the seams, aren't they? I mean, for real. There are places now where if you get a prison term of under 3 years or 4 years, you're going to do it in the county jail. Right? They give you different. It's better than day for day if you get trapped in a county jail. But there are places it's just there's no room, right? And what they'll start doing is what's called transeg, where they'll take somebody from New Hampshire, and if there's no room there, then they're going to send you to Massachusetts or to another state. This does happen, right? And a lot of times they'll ship them into the feds. There are state inmates in the feds, right? Drew Peterson was not a federal inmate. He was a state inmate, but he ended up in the feds because they couldn't protect him, I guess, in the state. I don't know. Do I think Diddy's using chemicals in there? If Diddy's using chemicals in there, then I believe that it would have to be an attorney, a paralegal, somebody like that is getting the stuff into him, right? That's my my humble opinion on this. I don't know that I can. Here's the thing. His what he's accused of is foul, right? So if you were in our car, if you sold to that dude, right, you're in deep trouble. He's on NC status. He's got nothing coming. If the guy goes, hey, man, can you open that door? No. Right? Hey, man, can you? No. Nothing. Right? You don't help anybody that has charges like the ones that Diddy's got. So I don't know that anybody would be willing to sell anything to him, really, because if you get caught, yeah, you could make a fortune. I mean, I guarantee it. He'd probably be willing to pay you 10 grand for what someone else might pay you 400 for, right? Dude's made of money. You heard him, he's broke. I don't think he's got a lot of respect for money. But the problem is, if fellas find out that you're selling to him, you're gonna get hurt in a big way. Number one, jealousy is rampant in prison. So if you were to pull this off, some guy's gonna go, you made 10 grand? You got a lot of people gritting their teeth and getting ugly. There's nobody in there wants to see somebody else succeed. Sad but true. It's like a bucket that you fill with crabs, right? You don't have to put a top on it, because if they start getting close to climbing out, the ones below them will try to pull them back in. It's just sad but true. Why would their parents in the business not protect them? Clint Eastwood, Ed Begley. Well, these guys, I would imagine that Eastwood's son probably didn't put up with a lot of the crap that other people are putting up with. I think there's a decent chance of that, right? I think not everybody. I'm not suggesting everybody on that list got SA'd. I'm not at all. But it's just curious, isn't it? It's just really weird. And when you start looking at the cast of characters and you realize that, okay, so Wexner owns Victoria's Secret, and he owns the Limited, and he owns Abercrombie and Fitch, right? And his financial advisor, to the point where he lived in Les's houses, right, was Epstein. No one knows. He was, the last job he had before that was, can anybody tell me? Substitute high school teacher, right? Because what makes you better for investing a multi-billionaire's money, right, than doing a little substitute teaching? People, does it smell right to any of you? Honestly, there are people who are going to accuse me tonight. I'm going to get emails that talk about tinfoil hats and doing all of those things. Being famous doesn't supersede his charges. No, ma'am. No, it does not. And because if you do that, right, if you make an exception, you're going to bring heat. Even if people were cool with it, the jealousy factor of how much you would make selling to an idiot like Diddy would get you killed. It just would. And if people say, can Diddy pay rent? As long as he can pay everybody in the room, right? As long as he can pay, and I don't mean literally everybody, because he wouldn't be paying other races. But if you say, this is the big dude and this is the guy that's going to protect me, and he wants $2,000 a month sent to the streets to his old lady or whatever so that she can pay the rent. And I'm using that term because it's what they would have used in prison. It's not one I use on the street. But people sending money to their significant others, right? And getting cash to the street. Well, the second that happens, right, someone's going to go up and go, hey, why is it you get cash? Right? Tell Diddy I want $2,000 sent to my girl on the street, and here's her information. Pretty soon, everybody there is going to be going, wait a second, man. I got to deal with this dude being in the unit, right? I got to deal with looking at this dude with the charges he's got. So if he's paying all of you guys, how come he ain't paying me? It's astounding how fast people get really worked, especially if you got cash. The only way that I could see him getting dope is if he got to once he gets to a yard. Yeah, because he's going to be on a yard with other scumbags. Sorry, but there are going to be a lot of people on the yard that he ends up on with bad paperwork, right? With similar crimes, right? He's going to end up on the yard that Larry Nassar is on. I'm not joking. So no, I don't. I don't. Not in this county. The lockup, the MDC Brooklyn. I just don't see it. I think if he gets any of his medication, it's going to be a perk 30 that's going to take him off of planet Earth. I think he'd be really stupid to take anything inside, because they're not going to, I don't see them Epsteining somebody again, especially somebody who might be part of the same gig. Keep it real. Somebody that might be tied to the entire operation. I don't think they'll ever do that again. It doesn't make sense to me. But if he could OD, that's plausible. It really is. I mean, sure, guys like me and conspiracy people are going to say, oh, there's no way. But he's got, thank you. I appreciate that, because it does. It stinks, man. This is MK Ultra stuff. Do you know that I got MK Ultra stuff sent to me when I was in the joint? And it wasn't for me. You could only do so many FOIA requests per year or per quarter or whatever. And guys who were really into that would come up and say, hey man, have you used up all your FOIA requests? And if you didn't, you'd put your name on it. But during a lockdown, this guy lived on the other side of the unit. So during a lockdown that lasted almost 6 months, I got a lot of paperwork that he had requested on MK Ultra. And do you know how they keep you from figuring this stuff out? They'll also give you 250, 350 other documents that got nothing to do with MK Ultra that literally could be from whatever, and they just kind of throw them in, and then they shuffle them like a deck of cards. It takes a ludicrous amount of patience to try to figure it all out. And when you do, they will have redacted every fifth word. Like, you really got to get kind of creative. But I think we all know what MK Ultra is, right? I think everybody, this is a pretty slick audience. Chrissy from Maui, thank you so much for the support. I think everybody here is pretty hip to MK Ultra. The idea that you can make a Manchurian candidate, right? Now, if you go, this is, do I believe that Epstein is unalive? Yeah, I don't think Epstein is still with us. I think he definitely got removed from planet Earth. I do. I think his usefulness had worn out. Right? I think he was genuinely scared in his last days. Right? You know, and I think he was tripping. And he probably knew people were going to come in there and silence him. I think that your client list, right? Like, if you believe that the phone calls the clips of phone call we were playing yesterday are real, he's got aces up his sleeves. He's got plans. He's got all these things. That wasn't the case with Jeffrey Epstein, right? Epstein, everybody said Epstein's not going to go away for 35 years. He's going to give up the big names of the people he's got. I don't know who those big names were, but they shut him up. Right? They didn't just shut him up. They shut him up. And when he was gone, everything else went with him. There's nothing left. It's a hustle, right? It really, I don't know. Smoke and mirrors, dude. That's great. That's great. Yeah, one step ahead, you're a genius. 2 steps ahead, you're a conspiracy theorist. Avena Sativa, that ought to be on a t-shirt. Do you get a welcome to prison welcome packet with the rules? You get a somebody from your car will bring you up to speed on the rules. Chances are, by the time you get to prison, you have a pretty good idea what the prison rules are, because the county jail probably runs pretty close to what a prison is like. It's a little different, but the rules are pretty much the same. Stuff like be the more respectful of the two people who are about to get into a. I tell people this, and I think they think I'm kidding a lot of the times, but like, you get to a place like Victorville, USP, right? There are people saying "excuse me" more than you will find any other place on earth, right? When someone goes, hey, "excuse me," no. Everyone is super respectful to one another, because everybody there will punch you in the face, right? There's nobody there that won't try to hurt you. These are guys that didn't follow the rules real well in the streets, and nobody really wants to. You know, everyone would like to just stay there and do what you do and get into a routine, but it's not always the easiest thing to do. Wexler is a big name, no question. Sorry. You know, I've heard a lot of people say this, AJ. I've heard a lot of people say this, and I think that there's probably some truth to this at some level. I really do. I think that desensitizing, right? I think that people get to a point where it's like, you know, the stuff that turns on normal people. I'm sorry. I mean, the stuff that you normally would consider not kink, right? Just kind of vanilla kind of stuff. Well, that doesn't work. And then you kind of start doing a little bit of kink experiment. But by the time it's done, you're like, you know, you got to send people in advance for the freak off. And I'm going to need a step ladder, a donkey, a camera, a super soaker filled with 50 gallons of extra virgin olive oil. Like, this, they really become, you know, I'm going to need 2 carp, right? They become really sick, twisted, disgusting individuals. And it's almost like they got to outdo the next dude, right? Here's a guy saying to his stewards, right? Your jeans have to be lower than your hips. You have to wear flip-flops at all times. Like, these people were living like pharaohs. They weren't living like CEOs, or they weren't living like people that were investing. I am Cordy. MK Ultra allegedly was a program that one of those 3-letter agencies around here had developed to turn a person into what they would often call a Manchurian candidate, based on the book and then the movie by the same name. which would, a person calls you on the telephone, there's something that they do to activate the programming, which is done over a long period of time. They bring someone in, they break them down, they program them so that at a specific time, they can turn that person on, and it's a one-man sleeper cell or a one-woman sleeper cell. That's the principle, allegedly, behind MK Ultra. Now, the people who go, that's a conspiracy theory. Well, there are files on it. You can definitely do a FOIA, and they will mail you the stuff, right? So it existed, right? It's hard to read what it was all about because they would act the hell out of it. But it existed at one time. All right, people, it's a wrap. I am Tommy. I'm probably going to see you at about 7 o'clock on California time. When am I going on Sean Atwood again, Crystal? I don't know. I guess it kind of all depends on what happens with Diddy. You know, it has an awful lot to do with it. What happens with Diddy is definitely going to affect that. Monica, you're good. Come back at 7 o'clock on the West Coast, California time. All right. I'm Tommy. I will see you all in the next one. Between now and then, reach out and try to save someone. Love that, Judith. Is that Voltaire that said that? Charlie Muffins, what's happening? I think that was Voltaire.